Okay, the ground is literally shifting beneath our feet right now. For decades, the West has sat incredibly comfortably on the throne of modern medicine. Everyone just assumed that position was, well, untouchable. But while the old establishment was resting on its laurels, a new giant woke up with this absolutely unstoppable force. The crown of global pharmaceutical innovation is falling as we speak, and it is landing on a completely new head. Welcome to today's Explainer. I'm your host, and today we are on a mission to uncover the dramatic truth behind China's sudden, almost seemingly overnight dominance in the global biotechnology sector. Buckle up, because the sheer scale of this shift is absolutely staggering. To really grasp why this is happening, you first have to look at the massive precipice facing traditional pharmaceutical giants. $200 billion. Just let that number sink in for a second. That is the colossal patent cliff threatening to wipe out Western Pharma revenues between 2026 and 2030, as their biggest blockbuster drugs lose exclusivity. They're staring down this terrifying revenue abyss, and the reality is they simply cannot innovate fast enough internally to save themselves. Just look at this headline for a moment from South China Morning Post. This is the news behind today's video. China's biotech industry sees global expansion as unstoppable despite US pressure. Chinese drug makers are increasingly relying on overseas licensing deals to reach global markets amid growing geopolitical tensions. With that said, let's go straight to the intro.
The algorithm buries channels that show the truth like mine every single day. The only thing that fights back is you. One like, one subscribe, turn on the bell icon. That's how the truth about China survives on YouTube. Don't let it disappear. Thank you very much.
Which brings us to the million-dollar question, doesn't it? With the West faltering and facing these massive financial losses, who exactly is stepping up to rescue these pharmaceutical giants and claim global dominance? I mean, who actually has the speed, the scale, and the cutting-edge technology to fill a $200 billion void? Chapter 1. The End of the Cheap Copy Myth. Okay, let's dive into this. For years, there's been this really outdated, comfortable narrative out there that China is just a hub for cheap, generic manufacturing. Today, that myth completely ends. They aren't just copying anymore. They are literally creating the vanguard of modern science. $135.7 billion. That is the stratospheric record in Chinese biotech licenses projected for 2025. Western companies aren't going to China to save a few pennies on manufacturing. No, they're going there with an open checkbook to buy cutting-edge innovation that they simply cannot find anywhere else on the planet. If you want to understand just how fast the global gap is closing, look at this. Recent industry data reveals that China now holds astonishingly 23% of all drug candidates worldwide. They are firmly in second place globally, and they're accelerating. Companies like BeiGene and Hangrui Pharmaceuticals aren't just playing along. They are massive R&D powerhouses with pipelines that completely outpace legacy Western firms. And they are absolutely dominating in the most complex fields imaginable. Take ADCs, for example, or antibody-drug conjugates. You can basically think of these as precision-guided missiles against cancer. They hunt down specific tumor cells and deliver a toxic payload right inside them, totally sparing the healthy tissue. But what's really mind-blowing here is that China has run almost double the early clinical trials for ADCs compared to the United States and Europe combined. They own the vanguard of oncology. Chapter 2. Light speed versus slow bureaucracy. So how did they get so far ahead so fast? Well, the true engines of this new supremacy aren't just brilliant scientists. They are operational speed and massive scale. Over in Europe, pharmaceutical companies can lose up to 113 days just fighting through bureaucratic red tape to get a single clinical trial approved. Meanwhile, China has built this hyper-optimized ecosystem backed by an incredibly huge data pool. Patient recruitment in China happens 2 to 5 times faster than anywhere else. Their discovery cycles, 50 to 70% faster than the global average. And this brilliantly illustrates how that operational speed turns into a massive financial edge. China is basically running absolute circles around its competitors while spending 40% less on phase 1 clinical trials. It is precision engineering applied to human life. They do it faster, and they do it for a mere fraction of the cost. Now, efficiency like that isn't accidental. It's meticulously organized across 4 massive regional clusters powering this innovation. You've got the Yangtze River Cluster, driving R&D in nanotechnology. The Bohai Rim focuses heavily on genome synthesis. South China is out there pioneering digital medical devices. And the Midwest acts as the main nerve center for clinical trials and massive industrial scaling. It's a perfectly integrated machine featuring over 8,500 different companies. Chapter 3. The AI Revolution. But, speed and organization are really only part of the story here. The ultimate catalyst is this seamless, almost science fiction level fusion of artificial intelligence and deep biology. Look, traditional drug discovery takes anywhere from 3 to 6 totally painstaking years, but Chinese companies, they're utilizing generative AI engines to completely shatter that paradigm. By synthesizing and testing just 60 to 200 molecules via AI with platforms like In Silico Medicine's Pharma AI, they're shrinking the timeline for nominating a preclinical candidate down to a mere 12 to 18 months. That is a game changer. And they have the ultimate backer right behind them. The Chinese government has officially designated biotechnology and AI as a new quality productive force. What that means is it ensures an unstoppable political will, incredible flexibility when it comes to digital regulations, and practically unlimited financial backing to digitize their entire industrial base. The result is what we can only really describe as an unprecedented financial pivot. Western Big Pharma isn't trying to exclusively compete with Chinese AI anymore. They're literally paying billions for the privilege of using it. We're talking AstraZeneca paying $18.5 billion for a CSPC obesity pill, Pfizer putting $10.5 billion on the table for cancer therapies with Innovents, Eli Lilly dropping nearly $3 billion for an R&D deal with In Silico. It's a total fundamental paradigm shift. Chapter 4. The Global Fallout. So, with the balance of power shifting this violently, how is the rest of the world scrambling to adapt? As our sources detail, we're seeing a really deeply divided geopolitical reaction. Europe is largely reacting out of pure economic necessity. Their healthcare systems are facing these structural fiscal crises, so they're embracing Chinese innovation because the active pharmaceutical ingredients, or APIs, are 40% cheaper. The United States, conversely, is viewing all of this through the lens of national security, attempting to build regulatory walls like the Biosecure Act to try and limit that dependency. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that this tech is already reaching patients globally. While the West so often focuses on highly expensive treatments for the very few, China is democratizing high-tech healthcare for the many. They've developed AI-driven tests that can detect multiple types of cancers: gastric, pancreatic, colorectal, from just a single dry blood spot. It's cheap, it's incredibly fast, and it can be shipped literally anywhere in the world. Chapter 5. The Inevitable Future. If we just zoom out for a second and look at what this permanent paradigm shift means for the global landscape, the experts cited in our source material are remarkably clear on this point. They state, the globalization of Chinese innovation is irreversible, despite any regulatory walls being built in the West. China has the STEM talent, they have the massive data pools, and they definitely have the political will. The next massive pharmaceutical giant, the next Pfizer, well, it won't be born in New York or Switzerland. It's going to be Chinese. We are witnessing history being written in real time right in front of us, which leaves us with a final, extremely provocative question to ponder today. With the undeniable advantages in speed, AI, and scale that we've seen throughout this explainer, can the West realistically recover its leadership? Or is China's dominance in the future of human health now total and unquestionable? Thank you so much for joining us for this dramatic dive into the new biotech empire. If this explainer opened your eyes to the shifting global landscape, please drop a like right now to help spread the word. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss our upcoming deep dives. And I really want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts on that final question in the comments below. Who do you think will ultimately control the future of medicine? Let's get a debate going. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next explainer. Goodbye.